me now, Democratic Congressman from Massachusetts, Seth Moulton. Welcome to you, Congressman. So you just heard from a couple of Trump voters there on the debate. Do Americans need to witness another Harris-Trump face-off, or is Donald Trump right? It's just too late now that early voting has begun in some states.
Donald Trump is clearly very scared, but it would be helpful. Yes. I mean, this is a very short campaign. And so we ought to be able to hear the two candidates, face off and debate their proposals, or in Trump's case, the lack thereof. And for Americans to really get another chance to see the contrast between these two people running for the highest office in the land. Absolutely, we should have another debate.
Yeah, and look, by the way, 2020, that last debate, that was October 22nd. This is supposed to be October 23rd. So maybe your point is well taken. He's running scared on this one. What about the new poll?
He's obviously scared. I mean, he got creamed. He got crushed. He got obliterated in that first debate. And as much as he goes around and tries to tell people that he actually won, we all know he's full of, what? He's not going to want, he doesn't want to debate again. His team is scared of it. He's scared of it. He's trying to get out of it. I hope Harris holds his feet to the fire.
Okay, we'll see if she does. Meantime, checking out the new NBC News poll, which shows Kamala Harris with a 5-point lead over Donald Trump within the margin of error. But Trump does hold advantages on the economy, inflation, the border. They are considered the top issues for voters overall. So with just 6 weeks left in this election, how might Harris change minds on those issues?
What I want to see the vice president do is actually separate herself a little bit from President Biden. I mean, she's been an amazing teammate to the president. I love President Biden myself, but we all know that a lot of Americans have problems with his immigration policy, for example. In fact, he himself has made several changes to his immigration policy over the course of his term. The Republicans are trying to tie Harris to Biden. If you look at Fox News, it's always the Biden-Harris plan, the Biden-Harris problem now, whereas just a few months ago, of course, it just said Biden. Everyone in the Republican Party, while their supporters are trying to blame her for his problems, why doesn't she just say, you know what, I would do things a little bit differently. Here's how I would handle things differently than the president. I love the president. I respect him, but I would have handled these tough issues in a different way. Here's how I would lead. I think that would be incredibly powerful for her to say. And I don't think it would turn off Democrats. I think that we all know that she's an independent woman. She's an independent leader. She's a strong leader, and she should show some of those differences with Biden.
She's a different person. She'll be a different leader. I mean,
that's right.
Makes sense. What about the NBC News poll that shows that 33-point gender gap between the two candidates? Harris leads women by 21 points. Trump is up among men by 12. Why do you think there's such a significant gap? And is there something Harris can do to bring some of those guys into her camp?
Well, I think that, again, the more she gets out there and shows that she will lead on these key issues that male voters care about a lot, including immigration and the economy, that she can separate herself not just from Donald Trump, but from President Biden on some of these key issues, I think she'll win more of these people over. I've never really understood why so many men like someone like Donald Trump, who's such a fundamentally squirmy, weak person himself. I mean, he is not a model of manhood, a very far stretch from it. So she has the ability to win these voters over, but I think they're hung up on some of these key issues. And sometimes I hear people say, I don't like Trump. I know he's not a good guy, but the economy was good under him, or we didn't have as much inflation. They're not listening to the details of his new plans, which would dramatically increase inflation if Trump is elected president. But Harris needs to make that case. She needs to make it strongly. And again, I think being willing to show some separation from the president on these issues would help her.
I know you are headlining, my friend, a Harris Walls fundraiser this week for veterans, service members, military families. Is there anything tangible that Harris should do to appeal to veterans, or are most dug in at this point?
No, I mean, I think veterans know that Donald Trump is terrible for veterans. He hates veterans. He doesn't understand why people serve. We've all heard all the different ways that he's assaulted vets, called us suckers and losers and everything else. But Harris needs to make an affirmative case for what she will do. The Biden administration did some great things for veterans, including passing the PACT Act over the objection of many congressional Republicans, which is getting aid to people like myself who were exposed to burn pits overseas, as just one example. example. But she needs to make a case for all the things she's going to do in the future. And I think veterans are also looking at foreign policy. And we need to hear a bit more from the vice president on what her foreign policy would look like in such a troubled time in the world. I think if she can get out there and make those cases, she'll win more veterans over.
You're a member of the Armed Services Committee and a Marine, so I want to get your perspective on a Wall Street Journal report saying that senior U.S. officials now say they are privately acknowledging a ceasefire and hostage deal is unlikely before President Biden's term ends. Republican Senator Tom Cotton this morning said if the administration had taken a different approach, the war could already be over. Here's part of that.
First off, they're not giving them the political and diplomatic support that they needed from the very beginning. If rather than trying to put constant pressure on Israel, more pressure than we put on Iran and its terrorist networks, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had simply adopted a policy to let Israel win and back them to the hilt, the war in Hamas probably would have ended a long time ago.
Okay. Does the administration take fault for the prolonging of the war that now seems to be at the brink of erupting rather into something even worse? Okay, no on that. Does Kamala Harris need to promise a different approach if Biden is not able to seal a deal before the term ends? And really, this question needs to be asked. How much about the war lies in the hands of the United States, really?
It's a great question, Alex, but let's start with the beginning. What Tom Cotton said is absurd. The idea that we're putting more pressure on Israel than Iran, with the heavy sanctions the Biden administration has applied and enforced, with taking out Iranian proxies in Iraq and elsewhere. I mean, that's just an absurd statement. And people like Tom Cotton are more interested in scoring partisan points than doing what's right to end this horrific war and making sure